welcome to the Purposefully Clear podcast. In this podcast, we're going to be telling stories about direct application of tools, processes, systems that lead to validating outputs for students and teachers. Systems change, if you will, through culturally validating pedagogy and leadership. Come along for the clear journey. Excited you're here.
This is the Purposefully Clear podcast. This is number 14, episode 4 of 6, with our guest Billy Chan. The podcast is hosted by Dr. Reb Hillstrom at the Safio Hotel in San Diego, California on March 1st, 2026.
Hello, greetings relatives, Asio Tohaja. Good to be with you again. As I've been thinking through these, we're in the fourth one, and there's been a lot to reflect on. Very excited about the capacity that's being built, and this one's going to be no different. So we're challenging the conversation again with Billy and Tua, looking at knowledge and transferring it to skill development. Very excited. Come along for the journey. Let's be purposefully clear together as we build our capacity, specifically around our skill. So I'm gonna throw you this one. So the capacity equation, which we talked about a little bit earlier at the grant, right, has this K plus S in its bracketed. So you've talked a little bit about the knowledge you might need, that valued information. But based upon that valued information, we believe that you can develop and apply it, and that application is called skill. Right?
Absolutely.
And so application of valued information. So we've talked about the knowledge. What are some of the skills that you might still need to develop? Because you've been very articulate. And if you notice, I didn't say clear. I said you've been very articulate about a through line that needs to be, right? What are some of the skills that you've either developed and or look at like, heck yeah, this would be a chance to take that knowledge and really apply it, next level stuff, if you will. If you see where I'm going?
Yeah. The more impact we're making in our kids. So like when, like you're right, like, you know, like, one of the things I was thinking too, like, because I know you said something earlier that kind of resonated with me, and I didn't quite agree with, right? What that, like, you know, because like, you know, you can't treat it like a science because it doesn't give the same results, right? Science don't get the same results, right? That's why we have all these theories, right? Because you're gonna have, like, you know, it's not gonna work 100% of the time, right? That's why, like, you know, they're like even in science. Like, we may get similar results, but we always have a margin of error. Right?
You have to, right?
You
have to,
right? SBAC has margin of error.
Absolutely.
Right? When you look at the data, it's like plus or minus 12 or 26 or 45, right? So when we become critical as consumers, and like we know the science behind things, and then we leave the art pieces, right, to our teachers, because they're the one that's crafting their minds of our students, right?
Absolutely.
Then it becomes like a multidisciplinary piece where like our teachers are now critically thinking, and they're also artistically creating, right? And there needs to be a combination of two. You can't have one more than the other.
We agree with that fully. And if you've seen any of my work in the past, we talk about the art and science of pedagogy. Absolutely, right? They're a twin. Absolutely, right? And there's no doubt that we have to have the replicable processes, right? But when we talk about that skill, that applying that knowledge, so what's actually just below the surface here? Well, there's a mental model, a C2, a conviction, if you will, that doesn't seem to understand that cognition is dynamic, right? And that it changes and that there's multiple components to it, just like language. And the idea of allowing cognition to be dynamic and then realigning it with a process is where it go between the art and science of pedagogy. You see, David provided us in our last webinar series a great deal of understanding of cognition and the 8 components of as a language, and not just a way to graphically organize our understandings of the world, but to go deeper. And when we understand that cognition is not static, but continually grows and must be mediated, we can go much deeper. I know this is a little much for a 1-minute segment, So if you're interested to learn more about this with us through the CC, the free credit and the clear renewal work, we'd love to connect with you there. Check with Nan and we can go more deep on some of these conversations with you. Listen, Billy, jump on this one. What if all knowledge, and I mean literally all knowledge, that is, has been, or ever will be, has and will continue to always exist? What does that mean to skill?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, think about that. When you, I've never asked that question that way before, Billy, but
Yeah.
you know, what jumps into your mind when you hear that?
Well, I mean, so like for example, I want to be I'm learning how to play the guitar, and I want to be better at playing the guitar. Part of those skills are already within me that I know I have a level of competency in, you know, in just music in general, and how to, you know, play a note or how to play a chord or how to even go beyond that and how to learn how to play a chord progression, and so those knowledge exists, right? So what I find is that, hey, if I really look at it, you know, whether I learn the pentatonic scale or whether I learn music theory or whether I just kind of look at some of the tools available to me, like the circle of fifth,
Yeah.
I can certainly identify chord progression that I can leverage to create music, right? So knowledge exists. Part of it, I have to find it within me to identify what connects with me, what resonates with me specifically. And so when we think about students, if we can replicate that kind of critical thinking with our students in terms of what is it that they want to learn that's going to be relevant to them in their lives based on their lived experiences that we can really support and emphasize in our pedagogy and educational process, we would have a lot better outcomes in terms of achievement. So that's my philosophy, right? And so we just got to draw out of those kids, but we don't because we're standardizing, hey, if you come through the system, these are the things that you have to excel at because this society calls for that. There's nothing wrong with that, but then we forget the human elements of, yeah, your system doesn't align to me culturally, so now I'm marginalized, and so I will always have the low achievement that you've always gotten because you haven't catered to my needs as an individual, right? And so that's why I go back to when we talk about culture, we have to really consider the curriculums that we adopt. It's okay with brain supplemental, that's fine, but are they still relevant and responsive to somebody like me that doesn't necessarily fit into this frame of institutional education that exists in this country? And so the information that's always exists, and it will continue to exist, because now my kids are going through the same thing I went through 20, 30 years ago.
Right. Exactly.
It continues to perpetuate, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And so now I got to figure out, oh, yeah, that's okay. I can't control that system-wide outside of my immediate, but what I can do for my kids is that, okay, go to school and do this, but here's what I'm going to do for you because I know who you are. I know what your interests are, right? So then I can say, oh, yeah, you know, I'm okay if my kid gets a C in science because she's not really scientific minded, right? But she's an A+ in literature and English because that's where her passion is, right? She loves reading books. She loves looking at old English texts. So that's, I got to draw that out of her, right?
Right.
So I'm okay with the C in science, but the A's over here, I don't have to even worry about because it's already within her. I just got to help her bring it out.
So Tula and Billy keep talking about the two-line and urgency and the importance of how to do this. So I figured I'd just continue with Clear as a deeper dive, the L in this time around our participation forms and how to think more about achieving that in a deeper way. So again, as an educator, where are we encouraging students to make choices in content and assessment methods based upon the students' own values, right? Their own needs and their own strengths, including their linguistic values, needs, and strengths. Critically important. And that leads to a lot of urgency in different conversations. So think of that if you were having an administrator or me or anybody come into your classroom, here are some of the questions that might help you design your look fors, if you will. How can students demonstrate their learning in a variety of different ways? It's as simple as that, especially if we introduce linguistic concepts. How is flexibility incorporated into the assessment to account for students' experiences, values, and needs? Pretty simple stuff, right? But at the end here, where do students have choice, and how are different perspectives, their perspectives, centered and included in the conversation? If we do that, that can give us some examples of look fors that we think we should be able to articulate in advance. And then individuals such as myself and or our colleagues who come into our classrooms should be able to see them and a chance for us to participate in this growth together. Thanks.
Welcome to the Producer's Corner. I am sitting in my dining room editing this one, and it's really tough to kind of sum it all up. But really, all knowledge that is, always has been, always will be. I can relate it to my house project. I just finished up my son's room, and we've spent 3 weeks, I think, just mudding the walls and mudding the ceiling, and there's some new drywall and some old textured drywall that I had to skim coat. And I got to tell you, you can learn a lot by watching YouTube, but it can only take you so far, right? That's the science of it. But the art of it, I'll tell you, my 17-year-old son is much better at skim coating than I am. I don't have the, we'll call it patience for that kind of work, because it takes a lot of little efforts over and over again. I know I could get better, and that's where I think teachers need to live, is recognize which one you're really strong with. I'm really good at science. I'm a science teacher. I'm also a musician, which kind of, you would think, butts heads. But it doesn't. They can both coexist. So, in my lovely space here, my shaky computer, we'll put up the links. You know the drill. But one of these, right there, Nanette Eureka, will help you if you want to use this for any CEUs or credits that you need for relicensure. I just renewed my license a month ago. Used some of these credits, so they're there. You just got to talk to somebody and figure out how to get them. It takes an email, and that's about it. So we'll talk soon. I hope you enjoyed number 4. 2 to go. All right. See you soon. Get revved up.
So I'm all revved up. Friday night, my lovely and I went to see Soul Asylum, and it was fantastic. But I was standing in line to get our beverages, and the young lady in front of me, the server, was stressed beyond imagination, and things weren't working well for her. And she said to me, she just appreciated how kind and patient I was. I said, it's very easy to be patient when somebody in front of you is being kind. The gentleman next to me said, that's interesting. I said, well, when somebody's kind, patience happens, and when somebody's patient, kindness happens. All I want you to hear from me is what revved me up the most is how 3 of us from very different walks of life fell into a moment where we didn't care about how fast the world was moving, but we cared about each other. And because of those 2 individuals and a wonderful night at Soul Asylum, I'm all revved up.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Intercultural Innovations Incorporated. Director and producer is Dr. Rev Hillstrom. Producer and editor is Jason Eldridge, with graphics by Barbie Hillstrom and Nan Ureko. Original music by Ben Lockett, Jason Eldridge, and Dr. Rev Hillstrom. Intercultural Innovations Incorporated 2026. For any information, bright spots, or links from this episode, email jason.impacti3@gmail.com.